Okay, well, thank you, and hello, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to talk about multilingualism. And first of all, I would like to introduce my son, Joshua. Joshua has been raised bilingual, simultaneous bilingual, because he learned two languages since birth. And my wife and I decided to adopt a kind of method which is called OPL, or one parent, one language. So my wife is English, she speaks English with Josh, and I only spoke Italian with him. This is Josh when he was 5, now he's 20 anyway. So Josh was really creative with languages. He liked to mix rules and words in Italian and in English. And I'll give you some examples on that. For example, in English, we put the S at the end of the word for plural. In Italian, we don't do that. For example, if you want to say luce, which is light, singular, if you want to do the plural, you say luci. But Josh used to say one luce, two lucis. Right. What about sentences? In English, I drive the car. In Italian is io guido la macchina. Josh, I guide the car. Right. And we thought, my wife and I, we thought it was really funny, right? But when he went to school, the teacher wasn't really that impressed. And actually, she was really concerned about Josh. She thought that these two languages could confuse his mind. And basically, she thought that his language was delayed. And therefore, Josh was referred to a speech therapist. I was a bit perplexed, but I didn't say anything. So let's them work. And the speech therapist reported that there was nothing wrong with Josh. He's bilingual. Okay. So this personal story tells you, what I want to address tonight. The fact that, multilingualism is not a disease, but is something that we should be prepared, because, in our societies, we are, all bilingual, multilingual. I'm sure in this classroom, who is monolingual here, by the way? Raise your hand if you know just English. Nobody. Ah, you. All right, okay. All right, so just to say that in the UK, 20% of pupils in UK schools are what is called EAL. I don't like this definition, but it means English as a second language. And in London, 44% of pupils in schools in London are multilinguals. And they include pupils from nursery, primary schools, secondary schools. And this is the data from the government. Now, despite all this tsunami of multilinguals in our societies, in our school, this is what in my almost everyday interaction with teachers and parents I hear. So these are not infrequent statements. And let's read them together. I mean, this is a parent. My child's teacher said that raising my child bilingual will significantly delay his linguistic and cognitive development. Wow. Teachers strongly discourage me and my husband to speak two languages at home. And this one, I heard this one actually from a language expert that says multilingual pupils take more than 7 years to achieve the same level of school attainment as English monolinguals, even when raised in high socioeconomic wealthy environments. Now, half of me is Italian, and you know that Italians like to move their hands. And my answer to this would be, but this is not very scientific, I'm afraid. So I needed to produce some kind of evidence that this statement were wrong. And this is when me and my research team, we decided to take a large database from the National Pupil Database. So here I'm not talking about experiments, cognitive experiments, neuroimaging. We just collected the data from the National Pupil Database, so exams data at SAT level, at 11 years old, and GCSEs level of the same pupils for English, maths, and science. Now, this database is quite rich, so we could also select 3 linguistic groups. The first one was the multilingual learners, so the English as an additional language. Those who came to this country, enrolled in primary schools, but their English, was not, competent, let's say, fully competent. Then there were simultaneous multilinguals, like my son, for example, so those who learn 2 languages since birth, and English monolinguals. Within these groups, from 25 state schools in London, so we are talking about 3,000, more than 3,000 pupils. Within these groups, we also selected those on free school meals. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but free school meals are pupils who are supported by the school because they are with underprivileged situations. And within this group, of course, there were multilingual learners, simultaneous multilinguals, and English monolinguals. So what we found, let's focus on the SAT exams. So when the pupils were 11 years old. And here in this graph, you can see the colors. So multilingual learners, oh, sorry, I got the laser as well. So multilingual learners are in this color, simultaneous bilinguals in the middle, and English monolinguals on the right. What we see from this graph clearly that multilingual learners are, performing a bit worse than the others. Obviously, this is related to the fact that their English is not up to scratch, so this affects all the subjects, a bit less for maths, but still the other 2 groups are more or less comparable. So there was no difference between simultaneous bilinguals and English monolinguals. But this is where it becomes quite interesting, I think. So we're talking about GCSEs. Here, the same pupils, they are 16 years old, and they do the GCSE exams, again, in English, math, and science. What we see here is that the multilingual learners now, they perform statistically at the same level as the English monolinguals. But if you look at the bar in the middle, the simultaneous multilinguals, they outperform the other 2 groups. And, the result is really highly statistically significant. So here is a clear example and evidence that long-term academic gains are associated with multilingual exposure. Let's take a look at socioeconomic impact, so the free school meals pupils. Well, all pupils with free school meals, regardless of their language experience, they perform worse than the non-free school meals pupils. This is a general kind of result. But if we break it down with the linguistic experience, you can see that still the free school meals in orange color are still performing worse than the others, but the gap between the free school meals and non-free school meals is not as wide for multilingual speakers as it is for monolingual speakers. So it looks like that a multilingual experience mitigates, at least partially, the negative effect of low socioeconomic status. So, takeaway message in conclusion. Well, first of all, well, we kind of demonstrated with real evidence, with real exams, that there are some positives about multilingual exposure, especially for simultaneous multilingualism. And as I said at the beginning, well, multilingualism is not a disease. It's something that we should embrace and foster. So teachers should be the first in the front line to encourage parents to raise their children multilingual, because there is no evidence that this can impair cognitive development or delay linguistic development. I found quite interesting the socioeconomic status result, because if this is true, we can support multilingual learners a bit better in the education system, because eventually we can see the trajectory at GCSEs level when they grow. If well supported, they will even outperform the English monolinguals. But now we are going a bit further with our investigation. We want to see what are the cognitive ingredients in our brain that would justify such a success in academic in school. But there might be also some cultural experience. So maybe the parents of bilingual children are more engaged with the studies of their children. And so we want to explore more the factors that justify these results. My message, my main message, that I'm devoting my academic life at the moment to avoid misconception about multilingualism. So I visit schools, and I meet parents, and I try to explain what's the state of the art of this line of research. But I can see that lots of work has to be done. We need to really to build bridges between scientists, between parents, and educators, because only if we collaborate and we talk to each other, we can understand what has to be done for our children. And of course, inform policymakers, because at the end of the day, I mean, if we want to change something, we want to introduce new multilingual programs and multilingual pedagogies in our schools, we need money. Yeah. So I think I stop here, and I want to thank my collaborators of this study, Andrea Ciccolini, Roisin Perry, and Michael Thomas. I want to thank my son Josh for inspiring my research. Yeah, he's a bit, yeah. Anyway, yeah, he's cool. He's a good bilingual. And I want to thank you for listening. Thank you.